So we saw where the Volunteers were ranked in the college football playoff rankings Tuesday night, first team out. Who is Tennessee's biggest competition and what actually needs to happen for Tennessee to be in the college football playoffs? That and a whole lot more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, happy Thursday and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your number one spot for Tennessee football news and entertainment weekday mornings wherever you get your podcast. You know it, we're free and available wherever you can find them. I'm Eric Cain. I really do appreciate you guys for being here, and a big shout out to the everydayers for making this show what it is. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell your friends. Let's continue to build this show up to what we hope will be a college football playoff show here in the matter of a couple of weeks. This episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to go ahead and get started. We're going to have Ryan Schumpert join us in segments 2 and 3 to talk about a bevy of topics: Tennessee football and the rankings, the inconsistencies of the College Football Playoff Committee. Dalton Knecht went off for the LA Lakers a couple nights ago, and then, of course, Tennessee basketball. Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider will join us in segments 2 and 3, but did want to kind of have a little bit of a cheat sheet here in segment number 1 when talking about Tennessee's chances in the college football playoffs. We had a bonus show Tuesday night, and so if you didn't catch that show, it was my immediate reaction following the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings of the University of Tennessee. That's up there wherever you get your podcast. But essentially, Tennessee's ranked number 11. So this is where it kind of gets confusing, especially for the first year of this college football playoffs, the expansion, and I would assume they're going to be expanded next year as well. Tennessee's ranked number 11, so you think, oh, well, they made the top 12. They're in. No, not necessarily. You got to remember, you got 5 conference champions to get automatic bids. The 4 highest conference champions get a first-round bye, and then that pretty much enables a group of 5 champion as well to get in there. So though Tennessee is ranked number 11 in this in the rankings on Tuesday night, the projected group of 5 champion is Boise State, who is ranked number 12, and so that means Boise State would be seated at number 4. That's got to change moving forward. The top 4 ones that get by should be the top 4 teams on the ranking, in my opinion. And then number 14 comes in BYU, the projected winner of the Big 12. Of course, it could be BYU, Colorado, Kansas is going to play a role in that as well. Pretty much spoiler. But BYU, the projected Big 12 winner, is ranked number 14 coming off a loss, yet they're guaranteed a spot in the field there at number 12. So because Tennessee finished at number 11, or Tennessee ranked at number 11, they consider the first team out following the Week 3 college football playoff ranking. So, again, what needs to happen? I talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, but a little bit of a refresher and kind of broken down into some more terms here. Tennessee needs to be rooting against Indiana. This weekend, Indiana travels to the Horseshoe to take on Ohio State. And I don't think Ohio State is as good as it's been in years past, but I think Ohio State's a really good team. And the College Football Playoff Committee has ranked Ohio State number 2 for the first 3 weeks. Indiana is undefeated, and they're kind of in a tough spot because you can only play who's on your schedule. However, that schedule is elementary. Okay, that schedule is straight up trash. They have the 106th best out of 134? 106th best strength of schedule in the country. And sure, it's gonna go up a little bit because they take on number 2 Ohio State this weekend, but they ain't played nobody, Paul. And so, number 1, in my opinion, Tennessee fans need to be Buckeye fans this weekend. Tennessee fans need to hope Ohio State just boat races Indiana, and it's going to be interesting. I don't think Tennessee's loss at Georgia was a astronomical loss, right? I mean, you lost by 14 points. You lost on the road to arguably one of the best teams in the country. If Indiana loses by a touchdown or 2 on the road at Ohio State, I'm afraid the committee will say that, okay, well, they show they can at least hang in there. They show that they're one of the best, couple of teams in the country. So they're not going to dock Indiana that much, despite it being its first loss of the season. Tennessee fans, in my opinion, need to be Ohio State fans this weekend and need to hope Ohio State just takes it to them. We're talking 3, 4, 5 touchdown win. I think it's very possible. We just don't know. I mean, I've not been high on Indiana all year. I've had people jump in the comments, and I don't know how good Indiana is. I've watched them a couple of times. I don't think that they've looked very dynamic. However, they could go out there and win this football game, or they can go out there and hang with Ohio State and lose by a touchdown or whatever, maybe a one-possession game. And if so, then Indiana is probably deserving to be in the field. But right now, with that strength of schedule, no quality wins, absolutely no quality wins whatsoever. Indiana, if it loses big, Indiana should be out. So first and foremost, I think Tennessee should be big Buckeyes fans this weekend because, again, Indiana's best win so far coming against Michigan and Nebraska, who are both at 5-5. Tennessee fans also need to be big fans of Army and USC in the last couple of weeks because Notre Dame is ranked ahead of Tennessee in the field. It's an independent. It had a horrendous loss to Northern Illinois back in week 2, I guess, or week 3, whatever it was. And Northern Illinois is 6-5 this year and coming from the FCS. So that was an astronomically bad loss. If Notre Dame loses again, I don't understand how anybody on the committee could make exceptions for a 2-loss Notre Dame team to be in. We know Notre Dame, because it plays independent football, can get no higher than a 5th seed regardless. But Notre Dame should not be in the field if it loses again. So Army, who is ranked number 19 in the college football playoff rankings, and USC, who has a decent win over LSU way back when earlier in the season, you need to be rooting for those teams in order to beat Notre Dame. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty here in the SEC. Ole Miss is 8-2. Obviously, if Ole Miss loses and gets a 3rd loss, this is the same for any of these teams I'm about to mention. In the regular season, conference championships, another conversation. But if Ole Miss or Alabama or Georgia lose another game, they should be out, in my opinion, okay? Ole Miss, what do they have left remaining on the schedule is Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. We know that can be wild and wacky. And, oh, what do you know, baby? Lane Kiffin, fans from Florida wanted you. Fans absolutely wanted Lane Kiffin. Wouldn't it be funny if Florida and Billy Napier knock off Ole Miss at home this weekend and Florida beats Lane Kiffin, the guy they want, and knocks Ole Miss out of the playoffs? I think it can happen. I think Florida's playing some really good football right now for Billy Napier. So, as weird as it is, Tennessee needs to be rooting for, or at least paying attention to, that Florida-Ole Miss game. And then, of course, next week with the Egg Bowl to see if Ole Miss can lose again. Ole Miss, of course, is number 10. Best win coming against Georgia. Worst loss outside of Notre Dame. The absolute worst loss in this college football playoff discussion is from Ole Miss losing at home to a 4-6 Kentucky team. Alabama, okay? Alabama's not likely got much left on the schedule that's going to do it any harm. Let's see here. They've got... Sorry, I don't know. I thought I had the schedule pulled up. I don't. But Alabama is on the road to finish 10-2. We know where the committee views Alabama right now. Its worst loss, or best win, came against number 10 Georgia. Its worst loss came against Vanderbilt, who is 6-4. But another loss in the regular season for Alabama. Obviously, I mean, Alabama won over LSU, and the committee loves that. Would put the Tide out on the outside looking in. Georgia as well. Georgia, another loss. Best wins against number 3 Texas, which the committee loves. Worst loss, not a bad loss, coming against Ole Miss, who is number 9 in the rankings. So Georgia's sitting pretty, but of course they've got a UMass game coming up, and then they finish the season with Georgia Tech, which should be big-time Georgia wins. Penn State, also the resume's not fantastic. It's 35th in the country. Their best win came against number 24 Illinois, who is 7-3 right now, and I think it's number 25 in the college football playoff rankings. The worst loss has come against Ohio State, but another loss to Penn State would do it. And then, of course, Texas would be interesting. I think you need to root for Texas to beat Texas A&M in the last game of the regular season, because if Texas A&M wins that game, it really muddies the water. Tennessee's resume is better than that of Texas, in my opinion, but the committee's going to be splitting hairs. And, of course, we have Texas, who's the 2 seed right now and is ranked number 3. Why even give the committee time to debate this? Because they're going to make the wrong decision, in my point. But if Texas wins that game, that officially eliminates A&M. If A&M wins that game, boy, it muddies the water a little bit. So you don't need all these things to happen. You just maybe even need one of these things to happen. But that is the official cheat sheet on how Tennessee can make the college football playoff rankings. And should be a good one, in my opinion, and a lot to pay attention to here as we wind down the regular season. Hey, when we come back, we'll get in with our conversation with Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. That's coming up next as we continue on here with your Thursday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Hey, guys, I want to say about my friends over at Skylight, all right? Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be a part of your festivities from afar? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy. It takes 60 seconds to set up. Seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription are required. Add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere in the country. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to the frame across the country. It's the fastest and easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you. My mom has one of these and she absolutely loves it. So now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your first purchase at Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off of your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. So a big shout out to them. And I want to give a shout out to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL season, regular season, the playoffs coming up with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to go ahead and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every single moment more with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey Ryan, Tennessee came in at number 11 in the updated college football playoff rankings earlier this week, but because of the automatic bids and the projected conference champions, Tennessee was the first team out. Surprised by the ranking, or like me, is that about where you thought Tennessee would be?
That's about where I thought Tennessee would be. I definitely thought they would be that first team out. I wasn't sure how everything would shake out with BYU losing as well to Kansas, or SMU at one loss. I wasn't Boise State even. I wasn't completely sure how all that would shake out. But when it came to Notre Dame, the 4 Big Ten teams, the 5 SEC teams that are all in contention, I thought Tennessee would be the last of all of those, which no matter how everything else shaked out in the order, would make them the first team out in the playoff projections, I guess, not just the rankings.
Yeah, certainly the first team out right now, but, 2 weeks ago, it's not a guarantee that Tennessee gets in. It obviously does not control its own destiny, but it's not like Tennessee needs a laundry list of things to happen in order to make the field. Maybe just one thing. I think Tennessee, of course, if you look at ESPN's predictor, Tennessee goes 10-2, 86%. Right now, Tennessee of the Football Power Index gives them, I think, a 63% chance of making the playoffs. You're sitting in a pretty good spot. You need something to happen, but you're sitting in a pretty good spot.
For sure. They really just need one thing to break their way and to take care of business. And, it shouldn't be any sort of issue against UTEP this weekend, and certainly Vanderbilt is capable of beating Tennessee, but a game you'd expect Tennessee to win. So I think that's where it's been a big deal. And some of it was this past weekend, too, with BYU losing. But just over the last couple of weeks, you saw Clemson go down, and you saw the ACC kind of weed itself out. You saw Miami lose, to where there weren't really many paths to either the Big 12 or the ACC being able to get more than one team in. So while maybe in the Big Ten and in the SEC, things have not broken Tennessee's way the last few weeks, certainly Notre Dame still hasn't lost a game. The things that they could be concerned about with multiple ACC teams getting in, multiple Big 12 teams getting in, all that's fallen their way, and now they just need something in the SEC. I'm a little bit skeptical of the Big Ten, but something in the SEC or something with Notre Dame to break their way, and if they take care of business, they should be in.
Yeah, it certainly feels like the committee decided a month ago that it was like, all right, 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, that's final. That's what it feels like right now. And the hot topic of conversation is Indiana. I want to know where you stand on this. Like, on one hand, I've been bashing Indiana's program for the last few weeks, and it's not like they've done anything wrong. They've literally beat the crap out of whoever's on their schedule, but we know that strength of schedule is 106th entering this weekend. What does it look like against Ohio State? My fear is, if they go out there and beat Ohio State, then they're telling people like me to shut up and they belong. What if they lose by 2 touchdowns? The committee that's chaired by a Michigan guy, I have a hard time believing Indiana's going to be left out. Now, if Indiana loses by 3 or 4 touchdowns, they don't deserve to be in the field because they got blown out by the only credible team they played all season long. So I'm intrigued to see this weekend with Indiana, Ohio State. I think Tennessee fans need to be big-time Buckeye fans. And then, of course, there's some other ones. Florida, Ole Miss, I think is massive. Last couple of weeks, Notre Dame, watching them with USC and Army. I think Army's this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Yeah. That's one to watch. Penn State, I don't know their schedule, but, of course, that would help maybe. Alabama's not going to lose. Georgia's not going to lose. But Alabama actually has a better chance of losing one of these two final games than Georgia definitely has. And we've already talked about Ole Miss. But I'm watching Florida, Ole Miss, and I'm watching Indiana, Ohio State this week. And I think those are the two games that can really help Tennessee.
I completely agree. Florida, Ole Miss, to me, is the number one game remaining on the schedule I think is most likely to break Tennessee's way. I think that's the most likely game, singularly, to be an upset. Maybe you'd say Notre Dame as a whole, since they have two games with Army and USC that are losable. The Indiana game's fascinating, and look, I fall on the anti-Indiana side of things more. I think the number you said is what becomes so interesting, because if Indiana loses close, sure, putting them in at 11-1, I still have my gripes with it, but I definitely see the logic of it. If they get blown out, they absolutely shouldn't get in. Well, what happens if it's a 2-touchdown game? And look, 2-touchdown games can look a whole lot different. You can be down 3, never be in the game, be down 3 scores, score a touchdown late, and lose by 14.
Sorry to cut you off, but look at Tennessee, Georgia 2022,
Yep.
14-point game.
Yep.
I walked out of Athens that day saying, boy, Tennessee is not on that level. Leaving a couple nights ago, it's man, Tennessee got it outscored 31-7, but it still could have won that football game. It's 2 14-point losses both years, but it's two different feelings. So, yeah, you're right on that.
100%, and that's where I was, working towards was the game on Saturday.
Before I cut you off, yeah.
Well, I didn't even think about the 22 game. The fact that those two were the same score, which is such a great point. But yeah, I mean, it's the fourth quarter, and Tennessee had the ball in midfield down a touchdown against Georgia. So they lost by 2 touchdowns, but not all those games are the same. So I'm with you. I say all that. I'm with you, and then I just think the politicking of it, I'm really skeptical they're going to put 5 SEC teams in and just 3 Big Ten teams in, when none of those Big Ten teams have 2 losses.
And here's where I think they could really get interesting. So a 2-loss team from the Southeastern Conference is going to play in the conference championship game. Okay. Say that team loses and has 3 losses. I mean, the entire season, I'm saying there is no way a committee is going to penalize a team from the Southeastern Conference from playing one more game. There's just no way. But if Indiana loses and you're 11-1, say they have a 21, 28-point loss to Ohio State, still you're going to take a 3-loss SEC team over Indiana? I would in a heartbeat. However, boy, that's a tough sell. Even talking about it's kind of a tough sell, and I understand why that's a difficult conversation.
I just think whoever that SEC team it is with 2 losses and potentially loses in the SEC championship game, I just think they get in over the 5th SEC team would be my thought. The only way I don't think that happens, and I don't really see any path to this happening now, but I could see the committee having manipulated it to be that team was already the 5th ranked SEC team, so they could say, all right, they lost. We didn't punish them. We didn't drop them below anybody. We're just not going to, bump them up. So I don't think that's going to happen. It is something that I could see happening in future years, depending on how things fall, for them to be able to position it that way. But I'm kind of skeptical of thinking they're going to have the chance to do that this year, just with it being Alabama or Texas or Georgia, where those teams are currently ranked.
Talking off the cuff right here, do you know are they locked into doing 12 teams for 2-3 years, or
It's this year and next year they're
okay.
locked in the 12.
So obviously they're talking about expansion, 14, 16 teams or whatever. So far throughout this process, I mean, it's been a fine process. It's been a blast throughout the month of October and November, kind of tracking all this. I think it's great for the sport and everything. I can't believe people thought this was going to be a bad thing, devaluing the regular season. Are you kidding me? I never said that, but there were many, and I think everybody's laughing about it now. But I do think one change-up that's got to occur, they've got to drop the 4 highest-ranking champions to get the bye. They got to drop that because, again, on Tuesday, man, right now you have 12th-ranked Boise State getting the 4 seed, and BYU, which is ranked 14th in the country, getting that last seed in there just because they get an automatic bid. But regardless, I think the the top 4 teams in the rankings need to get those buys because they've earned that, in my opinion. Because I think it's BS that a group of 5, or it was BYU last week, but like in this week, it's a group of 5. Boise State, who's ranked 12th, would jump all the way up there to number 4 and get a first round bye. That's not fair.
Yes and no. Like, I agree that you need to get it changed, but it's also like Penn State hasn't earned it. They're ranked in the top 4 right now. Texas is ranked in the top 4 right now. They haven't earned it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Which I would go to the point of saying, I think the SEC needs to go to a 9-team conference schedule badly, or 9-game conference schedule badly.
Even with all this, where strength of schedule doesn't mean crap right now, and the SEC's beating up on one another. Even with all this, at least the evidence we've seen so far, it's only 3 weeks. It's limited. I get it, but I feel like there's more arguments to stay away from the 9-game because the SEC's beating up on one another.
I guess you're right from an SEC office's standpoint because it gives you more arguments to put more teams in. But I just think you don't have this 10-2, cluster if more teams have to play more meaningful games. Which, look, I guess I see your argument for why you wouldn't do it because the Big Ten's got like 5 competent teams. So, and Ohio State's the only one that's playing a lot of them in the top group. So, I guess I see that side of the argument too. I just think it would fix or answer a lot of the questions. And then the one other thing I'll say, just related to Tennessee and the way it currently is formatted. I've heard people say like, what do you think Tennessee's chances are if they get in and making a deep run? And my initial instinct is to say like, not very good. I don't think this Tennessee team has it, but like if Tennessee were to get in as like an 11 and play Indiana in the first game as the 6, you win that. Then the 3 seeds, SMU or Miami or BYU, and it's like, well, yeah, actually they probably could. Like I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams to make it to the semifinals, but if you fall as an 11 or 12 seed and you get matched up with ACC Big 12 winner, if you can pull off an upset in the first game, it's maybe not as unlikely as it feels when you're just thinking about it in your head.
Hey guys, I want to say about our friends over at PrizePicks. What is PrizePicks? Well, first and foremost, it's the best place to get real money on sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash back. Run your game all season long over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is, again, it's for all. You're picking more than or less than. You have a player grid, okay, and you pick between 2 and 6 players. So they're going to give you a stat projection. So for Nico Iamaleava this weekend, maybe Jalen Milroe, maybe Dylan Sampson, whatever the case may be, you can mix and match games. You can even do the NFL and college and soccer, NBA, but you're going to pick a player stat projection, and all you're going to do, they're going to give you a projection, you pick more than or less than. You need at least 2, no more than 6 to fill up your grid, and again, you can win 100 times your cash with PrizePicks. It's a fantastic and awesome time to where you can put some coin in your pocket this holiday season. Download the app today and put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Download the app today, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. It is so much fun, and again, a fun way to watch sports this holiday season with over at PrizePicks. Put in that promo code LOCKEDONCollege, $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. All that and more is at PrizePicks.com. Now, that's a great point. Whoever's going to the 3 seed, or really in this situation, the 4 seed, like, heck, man, saddle up. Even with Tennessee's road issues, like, if Tennessee gets in as the 11 or the 12 or whatever, say they goes to Indiana, like that road game does not scare me. Like going to Penn State, okay, great environment. Going to Ohio State, some of these, like, okay, great environments. But like going to Indiana, nah. Going to Notre Dame, Tennessee can handle that, in my opinion. I think we were asked that on the Mailbag podcast for VolQuest earlier this week, and I thought that was kind of interesting how there's a couple of teams in this field to where, like, if Tennessee has to go on the road despite struggling on the road, it's like I think that's a challenge that Tennessee could probably handle. It's interesting, man. It's fun to talk about. I still think Tennessee's in a really, really good spot right now. Needs something to happen, but I think Tennessee's going to be in that spot to take advantage when that does happen. Let's shift gears here. Talk a little Tennessee basketball. 4-0 start. Got a game coming up later tonight, and boy, as a guy who covers basketball, how awesome is that tip time in the streaming service? That just screams November college basketball.
It really does. Nice 9:30 Eastern time on, I believe, CBS Sports Network.
Do you have the CBS Sports Network?
Yes, I do. I think. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm 95% sure I do because I watch a lot of Mountain West basketball is on CBS Sports Network, I think. And Thursday nights they play and when they get in the conference schedule, the late night tip. So I'm pretty sure I do. No, you're right. And if they win, this is the thing that's like frustrating of covering basketball at a football school. If they win, they're going to play Baylor or St. John's at 9:30 on Friday night, which is going to be 1A or 1B of the biggest non-conference game Tennessee plays this season. It's at 9:30 on a Friday night with a football game at 1 o'clock the next day. And it's just like, nobody's going to read anything, which I don't really blame anybody because the turnaround is so quick and it's November basketball and it's Tennessee football in the thick of the college football playoff race. But no, it should be some good tests for Tennessee this weekend, though. The tip times and the TV options aren't the best.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much can Tennessee help themselves? You always have these like tournament style, weekends in November, and Tennessee's going to be going away from Thompson Bowling, Food City Center, and playing in a paradise type destination, and then you're down some players. JP Australia is kind of limited right now, and you might be moving some pieces to kind of overcompensate. But I mean, so far, man, I think Igor Milicich's looked good. I think Felix Akpar has looked good. Chaz Lanier only took a couple of shots the other day, and Tennessee shot 63% from the field. It's very much a work in progress. It's November basketball. You can, I think you can very much help your resume in November. I don't think you can necessarily hurt it that much, but like a key win in November, I think could go a long way when you're looking at seeding lines and all that entering March.
100%. And Baylor, especially as a team that like right now, I don't think is nearly as good as they're going to be by the end of the season. A lot of new pieces, a couple transfers, a really talented 5-star wing. So a win like that could look really, really good come February and March. So it's absolutely a huge opportunity. And Tennessee, look, they play the same, every year it's typically like 7 Power 5, Big 6, I guess now Power 5, there's no more Pac-12 games, and then 6 games against, kind of bye games. That's the same way this year, but I would say the power teams they play, not as many marquee matchups. They get Syracuse at home in the ACC Challenge, obviously not nearly as good as playing North Carolina last year. So I think when they do have these opportunities, they need to grab at least one of them. And it should give them a really good chance to go into the conference schedule with, if I was guessing, 1 loss, maybe 2, and be in a solid spot in an SEC that's going to have no shortage of opportunities to earn quality wins.
It's early. At the time of this recording, they played 4 games, and you're very much in figure it out mode. And just like you said about Baylor, I mean, this Tennessee team could look very, very different, in January and February. What have you learned about this team? A lot of new pieces, new identity, a little bit. What have you learned about this team in the early going?
I think the biggest thing, or at least it stands out, is that they've been pretty consistent scoring from 2-point range. To this point in the season, they're 6 in 2-point shooting, 6 nationally in 2-point field goal percentage. I don't expect that to stay at that high of a rate, but to me that was a big question, and that was something I worried about a lot with this team, is who could score at the basket. How could they find consistent scoring at the rim without Dalton Knecht, without Jonas Adu, who did a lot of that for them last year. And they've been exceptional to this point, and I think what you've seen from Igor Milicic, what you've seen from Chaz Lanier in the Louisville game, a lot of what we expected from Felix Akpar, but even a guy like Cade Phillips looks a lot more comfortable around the rim than he did last year. I think I feel a lot better there. And then the 3-point shooting is what they envisioned it being when they went out and really filled their roster spots with a lot of shooters. And the defense, I don't think it's any surprise, but it remains at a really elite level. So I think this team has more scoring options, which I thought they would. I thought a lot of that would come from 3-point range, which it has, but the efficiency in which they've scored at the rim at this point in the season, I can't say I really saw coming.
All right, we got 3 minutes. We got 2 more topics. 4 minutes, 2 more topics I want to hit on, so we'll hit them quick. Stay on the hardwood. Let's go to the NBA. Dalton Knecht the other night, tied a rookie record for most 3-pointers in a game. He finished with, what was it, 39 points?
37.
37. And again, Tennessee fans are like, oh yeah, we saw that. The rest of the rest of the basketball world's like, who is this guy? What's his story? But what a transformation. Big Sky, right? That's where he came from. Second team all Big Sky to scoring 37 for the Lake Show in a span of 2 years. I mean, that's incredible. It's why we love sports. It's why that they needed to do a 30 for 30. I mean, obviously he needs to continue to, keep up production and have a solid rookie season. But I mean, Big Sky, second team all conference, doing everything that he did at Tennessee, to scoring 37 for the Lake Show.
It's pretty surreal, man. And it's, that's where I think it's been really cool about it. You saw him fall in the draft, and obviously nobody wanted him to fall. But then you see him land with the Lakers at 17, and you're like, all right, from a basketball standpoint, this is a cool place for him to land. This is a good place for him to land. But just from like an eyeball standpoint, this is awesome because people, it's the Lakers. It's LeBron James. They're going to get talked about a ton.
JJ Redick, former Duke great.
JJ Redick. They're going to be in a ton of big games and a ton of national televised games, and it's going to lead to a lot of eyeballs being on Dalton. And I'll continue to say that might have been the most surprising thing about his transformation is how he just got better. Despite never playing any sort of big-time basketball, just playing JUCO into Big Sky, he was at the best when the lights were brightest. And we've continued to see that early in his NBA career. And it's after a couple games of being a little sluggish, he gets put in the starting lineup, and he's been pretty dang awesome.
You saw some videos being circulated and bumped back through of what, ESPN analysts and reporters were saying about Dalton Knecht during the draft process. And I won't mention any names, but one in particular said played at, small school Tennessee. And I'm like, what? Like, sure, nowhere can prepare you for New York or LA. I hear you. But calling Tennessee small time basketball Tennessee essentially is like, okay, tell me you don't watch or pay attention to college basketball without telling me. Last thing, man, you and I both watched a ton of fall ball for the defending national champion Tennessee Volunteers. It's big takeaways, man. And will Jay Abernathy start game one in left field? Because I think he's on the fast track to start somewhere, and left field's open.
Well, I'll start with that one. I'll say no, he doesn't start game one. Yes, he does start by the start of SEC play. I think Colby Backus will get the Tony Vitello senior who works really hard. He does
Xander Seacrest, tip of the cap on opening weekend. And look what Xander turned into. Not saying that's Colby, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And even Christian Scott, who felt that way a few years ago, and he ended up being a big part of Tennessee's team that made it to Omaha. So I think he ends up getting a starting spot somewhere. I don't think it'll be on opening day. Wouldn't shock me if it is. And I think you stick with the transfers is to me what stood out most about fall work for Tennessee. Just Liam Doyle. Can't remember the numbers exactly, but the 5 or 6 times I watched him, I think he allowed like 1 run and 3 hits in something like 12 innings pitched. He looked like a Friday night ace. Andrew Fisher looked like a guy that's going to hit 20-plus home runs. Gavin Keelan was a little just more slow and steady. He did less to wow you, but just had a lot of really good days. So I feel really good about the transfer class Tennessee brought in again. And then I think it'll be really interesting to see how the pitching works out behind Liam Doyle. A lot of good options, but not a lot of certainty. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And I'm curious to see where Dalton Bargo ends up. He obviously misses the back half of fall with a finger injury. There's no clear spot for this utility guy to start at, but I have a hard time thinking he won't be an everyday regular in Tennessee's lineup when they get to SEC play.
Yeah, first base is open. Right field and left field technically are open. I think Reese will get right field, Reese Chapman. Alex Perry got a long look at first base. Yep. He finished strong. He did some things. But Dalton Bargo at first is one that kind of makes too much sense for me. But at worst case scenario, he's utility /DH. At worst case scenario, Andrew Fisher, who got benched at Ole Miss as being the third baseman, can go to DH. And you can slide Dean down to third and have Ariel out there or whatever. Last thing, at least from you, I mean, we watched a lot of fall innings. You watched some more than I did, but we watched a ton of fall innings. Dean Curley didn't come off shortstop, man. Now, Gavin Keelan played some short, but Dean Curley did not come off short. So I thought we'd see him play a little third, a little second in fall. It looks like Dean Curley, your true freshman who is your starting shortstop for the national champions, is going to stay right put, at least if fall is any indication.
Yeah, it's funny that statement you just made is would have been a surprising one to hear at the start of the fall. It's not like he was terrible at short or anything. I mean, he wasn't Gold Glove type guy, but he was very solid over there. And I'm with you. And these two things kind of work together. But he didn't move off short, and Ariel Antigua spent very, very little time at shortstop. A lot more time at second, a lot more time at third for Antigua. So that was very interesting, and certainly Curley, it seems like, if Vols any indication, that's where his home's going to be again in the sophomore season.
Awesome stuff as always from our buddy Ryan Schumpert of over at Rocky Top Insider. Hope you guys check out his work. He does a fantastic job. We'll continue to get you set for Senior Day in Tennessee against UTEP coming up this Saturday, and it's in a noon game, an early game. Thank the Lord, not another night game, at least from a media covering perspective, which is really, really tough. But nonetheless, final time to check out Tennessee at Neyland Stadium this regular season, and it'll be Senior Day as well. So we will come back on a Friday show. We'll talk with Boogie. We'll get you set for Tennessee and UTEP, Tennessee in the college football playoff rankings, all that and more. This is your number one spot for Tennessee football news and coverage this football season. It is Locked On Vols. Tell your friends, tell your family. Appreciate you guys as always for listening. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Vols.